Governor, so good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Such a rough time for everybody around here to go through.
Yes.
Now, the threats made by the man charged in the case, Jared Ramos, been well documented over a period of years. Was there anything more you think the courts or law enforcement could have done to prevent what happened?
Well, first of all, let me just talk about the incident itself, which was a tragic, incident here at our hometown newspaper at the state capitol. I think that the law enforcement that responded on the scene deserve a lot of credit. They got there within 60 seconds. They prevented, further deaths. But yeah, it's a good question. We have to go back and look at what happened in the court system. Apparently, this guy's went to court quite a while ago for stalking. He was pled down to a lower charge and then had his record expunged, so there were no records of it. How that happened in the court system, I don't know, but we need to get an answer. And the fact that they couldn't do anything about it until he actually did something, because there was no police record at the time. And but I know that the Capitol was well aware of this guy threatening, and the police were aware of it. He was in the court system, but somewhere something didn't go right, because we should have been able to stop him. I'm just thankful that they were able to respond the way they did and stop further people from dying. It's a tragedy.
Yeah, this feels like a familiar narrative. It's kind of a similar thing where
Yes.
you go back later, and now we're hearing that there were letters
Yes.
as well. We'll be talking with local police authorities and kind of getting some insight on what potentially could be done.
We are, and he did go through the court system with these charges. He just was, the judges pled it down to, they gave him a probation before judgment and expunged his record. So I don't know how or why. I don't know if that had something to do with the state's attorney, with his defense, with the lawyer, or the judge himself. I don't think it was the law enforcement that dropped the ball, because he did go through the justice system.
The White House now says American flags will be flying at half-staff at federal buildings to honor the victims.
Right.
The mayor of Annapolis, who made the request through Congressman Sarbanes' office, said initially that had been denied. Did you get involved to make this happen?
Well, so we lowered the flags immediately in Maryland. I have the power to lower the Maryland flags, and we did that, moved them to half-mast almost immediately after the shooting. The mayor of Annapolis apparently did put a request into the president. I don't know why it was confusing or exactly who said what when, but I know
the White House says it was as soon as the president found out.
As soon as the president found out, I think he made the right decision. I don't know exactly when the request or what answer they got before, but I'm glad he made the decision he did.
Whenever these kind of horrible acts happen, there's always discussion on gun control. Has this changed your mind in any way? What is your position?
Well, it hasn't changed my mind at all. We have the toughest gun laws in America, in the state of Maryland. I've pushed for tougher mandatory sentences for people that commit crimes with a gun. We push for bump stock legislation. We push for red flag legislation that just took effect in October that would stop somebody like this if you went to court from being able to get a gun or take a gun away from somebody that's mentally disturbed. I've always been for being tough on people that have criminal records or mental illness should not have a gun. There's no question about it. I'm for a universal background check. Again, we have the toughest laws in the country, and it didn't stop this from happening.
Let me pivot to the campaign. You're a Republican governor in a very blue state with high popularity and job approval ratings. How much of that comes from not embracing President Trump?
Well, look, I just when I disagree with the president, I say so. I did not support the president, and so my opponent and I are in the same side on that one. Neither one of us endorsed or supported or voted for the president. I'm the one that's been standing up for the entire time he's been president on everything that I disagree with, on health care, on separating families at the border, on any number of other issues. But my job is not to make decisions or to protest in Washington. My job is to run the state of Maryland.
Do you agree with the president on anything?
I'm sure on some things we do, but I come out and say when I don't. But in Maryland, my job is to run the state. I have a $50 billion a year budget, 90,000 employees, and I think that 75% of the people in Maryland are happy with the job that I'm doing, including 2/3 of all Democrats. So, my opponent would say, they should vote against me just because I'm in the same party as Donald Trump, and most people don't think that makes any sense. We have about 13% of the people that don't approve of the job I'm doing.
What about the Supreme Court nomination? What are your thoughts on that process?
Again, I don't have anything to do with Supreme Court nominations. I don't know what the status is. I know that in Maryland, I get to appoint our highest court, but don't have any role in the Supreme Court nominating process.
Would you want to see the vote delayed till after the election?
I'd like to see who the nominees are and see what the Senate thinks about it. That's their job and their role.
What about your thoughts on women's rights or choice?
In
that regard for Maryland?
It wouldn't affect Maryland because Maryland already has laws that would protect those rights as they are. So even if there were a change at the Supreme Court, which I don't think there will be, nothing would change in Maryland.
Pivot again to transportation here. You want portions of the Beltway and 270 widened, a project that's estimated to cost $9 billion, and that'd be paid through tolls and private-public partnerships. Is that going to be like tolls we already have north of Baltimore and in Virginia?
So we're attacking this traffic congestion problem from all directions. No governor in the history of our state has ever put more money into transit. We move forward on the Purple Line, which is $5 billion, and so we've saved Metro. We finally got Virginia and D.C. on board to keep Metro afloat and to come up with a solution for long-term revenues.
You happy with what they're doing so far?
I'm happy so far, but we're going to keep their feet to the fire and make sure that they continue to have better management over there and get things done, better safety. But on roads, we currently have $9 billion, nearly $9 billion worth of roads under construction. We're moving forward on every top priority road project in the state of Maryland in every jurisdiction. I think 840 roads under construction. Have already repaired, replaced, or are in the process of doing 69 structurally deficient bridges that we inherited. So we have unprecedented investment in transportation infrastructure. And this, what you're talking about, it's actually for 270 and 495. It's about a $7.6 billion public-private partnership, no tax dollars involved. All the existing roads would stay the way they are, but they may add additional tolling lanes that would take people off the roads and be similar to what Virginia has been doing. And we're in the process just finalizing the acquisition of the Baltimore-Washington Parkway 295. That's one of the worst congested roads in America. 125,000 people a day driving on roads that were built for 10,000. And so we're going to try to get those widened as well.
And let's talk quickly about education, because I think a lot of parents feel like politicians are very quickly to promise more and more money for education, but when it comes down to it, the dollars just aren't there. Yeah. What do you foresee for Maryland education?
Well, so it's been our number one priority. We've had record funding for K through 12 education every single year since I've been governor. No governor's invested more, $25 billion in education, more than the legislative formula is called for. We invest more in our schools than most other places in the country. Baltimore City school system, by the way, is the fourth highest funded school system in America. And we're going to continue to do so. I also have proposed a lockbox to force all that casino revenues that people were promised for 10 years was going to go into the schools. We have it on the ballot this year to make sure that $4.4 additional billion goes into schools. We also proposed adding $200 million for school safety. We've had the largest investment in school construction in more than a decade. So it's absolutely a top priority for us, and we're making headway.
Excellent. So good to see you this morning. Hope we can get you to come back for an Ask the Governor or something.
Thank you very much. We'd love to do it sometime.
Thanks. Maryland Governor Larry Hogan. A quick check